Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome to 90 Day Fiancé latest news updates. Asterisk, when Jenny Slatten first appeared on 90 Day Fiancé the other way. Very few viewers expected her story to become one of the most debated, emotional and polarizing narratives in the entire franchise. At first glance, it seemed like another cross-cultural love story, an American woman moving abroad for love. But within minutes, one question began to dominate conversations online. In living rooms and across social media platforms, how old is Jenny Slatten? That single question would follow her for years. It would define how people judged her choices, how critics framed her relationship, and how fans either defended or condemned her. Yet, the real story of Jenny Slatten goes far beyond a number. It is a story about aging, loneliness, resilience, and the human desire to be loved, no matter the stage of life. Jenny Slatten was born on October 30th, 1958. This places her in her mid-60s during her most recent appearances on the show. By the time viewers met her, Jenny had already lived an entire lifetime before the cameras ever started rolling. She had been married, raised children, struggled financially, and faced the kind of emotional disappointments that quietly shape a person over decades. Unlike many reality TV stars, Jenny did not enter the spotlight, chasing fame or luxury. Her life before 90 Day Fiancé was modest and, at times, difficult. She lived in California, often on a tight budget, relying on savings and support from family. Her circumstances reflected a reality many older Americans face: limited financial security, uncertainty about the future, and a growing sense of isolation. It was during this period of her life that Jenny met Sumit Singh. Their connection began online, a modern love story that crossed continents. Sumit was younger, much younger, and living in India, a country deeply rooted in tradition, family hierarchy, and cultural expectations around marriage. What started as friendship slowly turned into emotional intimacy, and eventually love for Jenny. This relationship reignited something she thought she had lost forever: hope. She felt seen again, desired again, needed again. After years of feeling invisible as an older woman, Sumit's affection gave her a renewed sense of purpose. Age, in her mind, became irrelevant. Love felt real, immediate, and worth pursuing. But reality, as viewers would soon learn, was far more complicated. When Jenny decided to move to India, she wasn't just changing countries, she was stepping into a world that viewed age, gender, and relationships very differently. In Indian society, marriage is rarely just about two people. It is about families, generations, honor, and social perception. And Jenny, an older foreign woman, challenged every expectation placed on Sumit. From the moment her story aired, reactions were intense. Some viewers admired her courage. They saw a woman refusing to let society dictate when love should end. Others were far less forgiving. Critics questioned her judgment, her motivations, and her awareness of the cultural reality she was stepping into. Online comments ranged from sympathy to outright cruelty, and always, the focus returned to her age. Why was an older woman pursuing a younger man? Was she being realistic? Was she ignoring obvious red flags? Was she holding Sumit back from a normal life? These questions overshadowed nearly every aspect of her story. What made Jenny's situation even more controversial was the stark contrast between how society treats older men versus older women in relationships. While age gap relationships involving older men are often normalized or even celebrated, Jenny's relationship was treated as something unnatural, embarrassing, or even laughable by critics. But Jenny did not shy away from her age. She never pretended to be younger. She never hid the reality of her life. Instead, she stood openly in front of the cameras, vulnerable and exposed, allowing millions to see her fears, hopes, and insecurities. That honesty became both her greatest strength and her greatest liability. As her journey continued, viewers began to understand that Jenny's story was not just about romance. It was about what happens when an older woman refuses to quietly accept loneliness. It was about the emotional cost of starting over later in life. And it was about the courage required to choose uncertainty over comfort. Moving to India was not easy. Jenny faced culture shock, language barriers, and a complete loss of independence. She depended heavily on Sumit, not just emotionally but practically. This imbalance only fueled criticism, with many viewers arguing that the relationship lacked equality. Others, however, saw it as a reflection of the sacrifices people make for love at any age. As the episodes unfolded, tension began to rise. Sumit's family entered the picture, and their reaction was swift and unforgiving. To them, Jenny was not simply unsuitable, she was unacceptable. Her age was cited repeatedly as proof that the relationship was wrong. The idea that their son would marry a woman older than them was deeply humiliating in their eyes. For Jenny, this rejection cut deeply. She was no stranger to hardship. But being openly rejected by the people she hoped would become her family was devastating. Viewers watched as she tried to maintain dignity while facing constant hostility. Her emotional breakdowns were raw, uncomfortable, and painfully real, and still, she stayed. This decision puzzled many fans. Why endure so much pain? Why not return to a safer, more familiar life in the United States? The answer, though complex, was simple at its core. Jenny believed love was worth fighting for. Her age, she believed, did not disqualify her from happiness. As criticism mounted, Jenny became one of the most discussed figures in the franchise. Articles, YouTube videos, and comment threads dissected every aspect of her life. Some painted her as brave. Others labeled her delusional. Few remained neutral. But through it all, Jenny continued forward. She accepted the risk of heartbreak. She accepted the possibility of failure. And she accepted that choosing love later in life meant facing judgment from a world uncomfortable with aging. Women who refuse to disappear. This is where Jenny Slatten's story truly begins, not as a reality TV character, but as a symbol of a much larger conversation. A conversation about age, about gender, about loneliness, and about the courage it takes to hope when society expects you not to. As Jenny Slatten's life in India unfolded, the romantic dream she carried with her began to collide head-on with reality. What once felt like a brave leap of faith slowly transformed into a daily emotional battle, one defined by pressure, resistance, and constant judgment. Love, which had once felt freeing, now felt heavy. The age gap between Jenny and Sumit was no longer just an abstract concern discussed by viewers online. It became a living, breathing obstacle that affected every part of their relationship. Every disagreement, every hesitation, every family conflict seemed to circle back to the same issue. Jenny's age. In Indian culture, marriage is deeply intertwined with family approval. Parents are not observers. They are decision makers. Sumit's parents believed they had a moral and social obligation to stop the relationship. To them, Jenny was not just an unsuitable partner, she represented a complete breakdown of tradition. They spoke openly about their shame. They worried about neighbors, relatives, and community judgment. They feared becoming a subject of gossip. In their eyes, allowing their son to marry an older foreign woman would permanently damage their social standing, and because Jenny was older than them, the situation felt especially humiliating. For Jenny, this rejection went beyond cultural misunderstanding. It felt personal. She wasn't simply being told no. She was being told she was inappropriate, embarrassing, and unacceptable because of her age. Over time, this message wore her down. Viewers watched as her confidence slowly eroded under constant criticism. The emotional toll was undeniable. Jenny cried often, sometimes from anger, sometimes from exhaustion, and sometimes from sheer heartbreak. She questioned her own worth. She wondered if she was asking for too much. And at times, she asked the most painful question of all. Was love supposed to feel this hard? Sumit stood in the middle of this storm, pulled in opposite directions. On one side was the woman he claimed to love. On the other was his family, whose approval he had been raised to prioritize above all else. His inability or unwillingness to fully confront his parents became a recurring source of tension. Jenny often felt alone, unsupported, and exposed. This imbalance created cracks in their relationship. Jenny wanted certainty. She wanted commitment. She wanted reassurance that she wasn't sacrificing everything for nothing. Sumit, however, struggled to provide those guarantees. His hesitation fueled Jenny's anxiety and intensified viewers' skepticism. Then came the revelation. That changed everything. It was discovered that Sumit had been married before, a secret he had kept hidden from Jenny for a significant period of time. This revelation shocked viewers and shattered what little stability Jenny felt she had left. The betrayal cut deeply, reopening old wounds from her past relationships. For many fans, this was the breaking point. How could Jenny continue after such a lie? How could she still trust him? Critics flooded social media, accusing her of ignoring reality and refusing to see the truth. Some argued that her age made her more vulnerable to manipulation. Others claimed she was choosing denial over self-respect. Jenny herself was devastated. She admitted feeling humiliated not just by Sumit's deception, but by the realization that millions of people were watching her pain unfold. Her vulnerability became entertainment, dissected frame by frame by strangers who felt entitled to judge her decisions. Yet, despite the betrayal, Jenny did not immediately walk away. This decision frustrated many viewers. But it also revealed something deeper about her character. Jenny was not clinging to Sumit out of ignorance. She was clinging to the idea that love, once found, should not be abandoned easily. After decades of loneliness, the thought of starting over again felt unbearable. Her age intensified that fear. Starting over in your 20s feels different than starting over in your 60s. Jenny was painfully aware of time. She worried about being alone again. She worried about returning to a life she felt had already failed her once. This fear became another layer of the controversy. Some viewers empathized deeply, understanding the emotional weight of aging alone. Others accused her of settling, arguing that fear should never be the foundation of a relationship. The debate surrounding Jenny became less about her actions and more about how society views aging women as tensions escalated. Sumit's parents became more aggressive in their opposition. They attempted emotional manipulation, guilt, and pressure to force an end to the relationship. They framed Jenny as the villain, someone stealing their son's future. In some moments, the hostility felt relentless. Jenny, once hopeful, now appeared exhausted. She struggled with feelings of isolation. She was far from her children, her grandchildren, and the familiarity of home. Her world had shrunk to a small circle of conflict, uncertainty, and emotional survival, and still, she stayed. This persistence confused many but inspired others. To some, Jenny represented a woman refusing to be erased by age or judgment. To others, she represented the dangers of ignoring reality. Either way, her story sparked conversations far beyond reality television. Viewers debated double standards. Why are older men praised for dating younger women, while older women are mocked or shamed? Why is female aging treated as a liability rather than a natural part of life? Jenny's relationship forced these uncomfortable questions into the spotlight. As episodes continued, the pressure reached a breaking point. Jenny confronted Sumit repeatedly, demanding clarity and honesty. She expressed anger, frustration, and despair, emotions she could no longer suppress. Her pain was no longer quiet or controlled. It was raw and visible. These moments divided audiences. Some praised her for finally standing up for herself. Others felt the relationship had become toxic and the uncertainty surrounding their future kept viewers emotionally invested. Even as the situation grew more painful, the love story that once seemed romantic now felt heavy with consequence. And yet, beneath the chaos there was still genuine connection. In moments of calm, Jenny and Sumit shared tenderness, laughter, and understanding. These glimpses reminded viewers why Jenny had risked everything in the first place. But the question remained: could love truly survive such deep cultural resistance? Betrayal and emotional damage, especially when time was not on Jenny's side. As the season progressed, the stakes grew higher. Decisions had to be made. Lines had to be drawn. And Jenny faced the most difficult reality of all. Loving someone does not always mean the world will allow you to be together. What came next would define not just her relationship, but her entire journey. As Jenny Slatten reached the later stages of her journey on 90 Day Fiancé, The Other Way, it became clear that the story was no longer just about whether her relationship would survive. It was about whether she herself would emerge from the experience broken or transformed. After years of resistance, conflict, and emotional exhaustion, Jenny and Sumit stood at a crossroads. The pressure from Sumit's family had not disappeared, but something fundamental had shifted. For the first time, Sumit began to openly confront the possibility that living for others would cost him the life he wanted. For Jenny, this moment felt fragile. She had been disappointed before. Promises had been made and broken. Trust had been damaged and slowly rebuilt. Hope, once shattered, does not return easily, especially later in life. Still, she allowed herself to believe that perhaps this time, things might truly change eventually. Jenny and Sumit made a decision that many believed would never happen. They chose to marry. The marriage did not come with celebration, applause, or universal approval. There was no fairy tale ending, no sudden reconciliation with Sumit's parents. Instead, it was quiet, complicated, and deeply emotional. For Jenny, the marriage symbolized something far greater than a legal union. It was validation. It was confirmation that she had not imagined the love she fought for yet. Marriage did not erase the past. The emotional scars from years of rejection did not disappear overnight. Jenny still carried the weight of being unwanted by Sumit's family. She still felt the absence of her own family, thousands of miles away. And she still faced uncertainty about finances, health, and long-term stability. But something inside her had changed. Jenny was no longer constantly apologizing for her existence. She had stopped asking permission to be loved. The woman who once questioned her worth now spoke with more confidence, more clarity, and more self-respect. Her age, once a source of shame imposed by others, became something she openly acknowledged without fear. She began to understand that aging did not make her weak, it made her experienced. It did not make her undesirable, it made her honest. It did not disqualify her from love, it defined the depth with which she could feel it. Viewers noticed this evolution. Public reaction to Jenny shifted over time. While criticism never fully disappeared, a growing number of fans began to see her differently. Older women in particular found comfort in her story. They saw themselves reflected in her fears, her loneliness, and her determination to seek happiness despite social judgment. Jenny became a symbol, but powerfully, she represented women who are often ignored by media narratives, women who are told that romance belongs to the young, women who are expected to quietly accept solitude as they age. Jenny refused that narrative, and in doing so, she challenged deeply ingrained cultural attitudes. Social media discussions surrounding her age began to change tone. Where once there had been mockery, there was now reflection. Viewers debated ageism, gender bias, and the double standards that allow men to age freely while women are penalized for the same passage of time. Jenny's story became a catalyst for conversations far larger than reality television. Still, Jenny's life was far from perfect. Living in India came with daily challenges. Cultural compromise was an ongoing process. Financial limitations created stress. Health concerns lingered quietly in the background, and the reality of growing older in a foreign country was never easy. Jenny did not romanticize these difficulties in interviews and public appearances. She spoke candidly about her struggles. She admitted to moments of doubt, regret, and fear. But she also spoke about growth, about learning to advocate for herself and recognize her own value. She no longer framed her life as a sacrifice. Instead, she framed it as a choice. This distinction mattered. Jenny did not present herself as a victim of love. She presented herself as someone who consciously chose risk over resignation. That choice, regardless of outcome, gave her agency. So where is Jenny Slatten now? Today, Jenny continues her life with Sumit, navigating marriage with realism rather than illusion. She remains connected to fans through social media, where she shares glimpses of her daily life, thoughts on mental health, and reflections on aging. She does not pretend everything is easy, but she also does not regret choosing love. Her relationship with Sumit remains complex, shaped by years of struggle and compromise, but it is also grounded in honesty earned through hardship. They are no longer chasing an idealized fantasy. They are building something real, imperfect, and human. Jenny's journey forces one final question. Was it worth it? The answer depends on perspective. From the outside, her choices may seem risky or unconventional, but from Jenny's point of view, the greater risk would have been never trying at all. Looking back, the question, how old is Jenny Slatten, feels almost irrelevant because age was never the story. The story was about courage. The courage to begin again when society expects you to stop. The courage to love when the world tells you it's too late. And the courage to accept judgment without allowing it to define you. Jenny Slatten did not find a perfect ending. She found something far more meaningful. She found herself. Her journey reminds us that love does not have an expiration date. That hope does not vanish with time. And that choosing happiness, even imperfect happiness, is an act of quiet rebellion in a world that often tells women to settle for less as they grow older. In the end, Jenny Slatten's legacy within the 90-Day Fiancé franchise is not controversy. It is resilience, it is vulnerability, and it is the reminder that a life lived honestly at any age is a life worth telling. **